Blog Talk Radio.
Warning, the following program may include profane language, controversial viewpoints, and perspectives on the true nature of reality so far removed from the status quo, they'll make your head spin like a top. Young children, corporate executives, and religious fundamentalists should turn away now. Aloha, planet Earth. Welcome to Extraordinary Year. I'm Tim Bravo. Thanks for joining us tonight. T-minus 114 days until December 21st, 2012. Our guest tonight is Lou Lefave. He's the creator behind the short animated film I, Pet, Go 2. I'm going to guess that everyone listening in tonight has already seen the film, but if you haven't, hop onto our Facebook page at facebook.com/extraordinaryyear and check it out on the wall there as we talk. So, Louis, I want to get into this. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Well, thanks for having me on, Tim. It's a pleasure being on.
Well, I got a true story for you. The first time I watched this film all the way through, after it ended, the first words out of my mouth were, that might just be the most beautiful work of art I've seen in my entire life, my whole life. And I've watched it numerous times since then, and I got to tell you, it still holds true. Your film speaks to me on a level way beyond words. And so, thank you for what you've given us, and thanks for coming on to discuss with us what you had in mind when you were building this thing and when you were putting it together. Now, you did this over how long a period?
Actually, I'd say I started about 8 years ago, and I spent like the first 3 or 4 years just kind of working on it part-time because I was working freelance at the time from home. And so it was just kind of an idea that started to germinate, and I had been, kind of putting it off for a while and then just working on it from time to time. And then in 2008, I think it was, I was, I just thought, I'm never going to finish this. Either I really dedicate myself fully to it, or I, give it up. And so I decided to make the leap, and I started, my little company, and I had some money. I actually sold my house, and
wow,
yeah, and it was all paid for. But so I sold my house and thought, this is really what I want to do. If there's one thing I want to do, in my life is make a short film about something I find relevant. And so I decided to embark on this journey. And so for the last 4 years, I've been working on it full time, and I've had a few freelance workers helping me out punctually. Sometimes they'd come in actually physically into my little studio, and sometimes it was just working from home. And I also, for example, hired some dancers, because some of the dancing in the film is actually motion capture.
Right.
We did at a little, actually at the University of University of Quebec here in Montreal, and we did some motion capture with them, and then in the process also it was interesting because I started off with a kind of a song as a reference, as a guide for the tempo of the film, and then I eventually, and it had words in it, and then I found that the words were a little too insistent. It made the piece a little too insistent, I felt, and plus I wanted something more original. And then I met some two good friends of mine, and they're actually some of my best friends now. And they just loved the film. They saw it was a work in progress at the time, and they offered to do the music, and so they came up with a first track, and that was just wow, this is great. This is what I've been looking for. So it just worked out perfectly for that.
And it really, you can't look at this piece of work without the sound element to it, and the build. It's definitely it's an experience. I love to just sit back, put the thing full screen, watch it on Vimeo because Vimeo's just got great playback quality, and pump up the speakers and just take in the experience.
Yeah, and Vimeo is obviously a lot better visually as well. It's just, the compression and everything is a lot better. I think I'd recommend your viewers to watch it on Vimeo rather than YouTube. Yeah. But yeah, they came up with this, it was a kind of a bolero soundtrack. Like you said, it's a building soundtrack, and what I love about it is just all those little parts and how there's so many different layers to it, and then one layer fades in and one layer fades out, and it just really complements the story really well. And for example, the beginning part, excuse me, the beginning part with George Bush and Obama.
Yeah.
I just love the way how they. For me, when I listen to it, it's like almost like a video game. It's like when I was a kid, my father had bought the first video game that came out. It was called Pong, I think it was. It was just like two table tennis. Do you remember that? Or
on Commodore 64?
It was actually before that. It was like it wasn't even on a computer. It was just this dedicated video machine, kind of like a Nintendo, the first Nintendos, I guess. And it was just these two paddles that you would just kind of,
move back,
navigate up and down, and then it was just like playing table tennis, and it was just like this mesmerizing sound, this bouncing ball. And for me, that the beginning of the soundtrack is kind of like that for me. It's just kind of this video game, and I think it's so appropriate with the Bush and Obama character, because Bush is so much in his like mind, and he's just like you can just see he's just going around in his own mind, and he's oblivious to people around him.
That moment where you have him going, I lost it the first time.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
So I thought that was really good, the way they found that little hook in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then it just moves into that more dramatic thing. I find it at some point it just kind of becomes kind of I think when the little girl starts looking at the politicians, and I find that for me it just sounds a little bit like David Lynch, that kind of atmosphere, that dark and brooding atmosphere. Yeah. And then it moves into all these just lovely sounds. I was just really blown away by what they did. It was just like, this is spot on what I wanted. Yeah.
Well, and it's funny, that something like that would come together so well. It really is just a phenomenon to me. I don't want to gush all over your film all night. I do want to talk about what specifically you meant by all kinds, because you really stacked this with symbols and archetypes, didn't you?
Yeah. I mean, that's basically all it is symbols and archetypes.
Well, as a viewer watching your film, I can't help, especially, the kind of person who this film is probably going to speak to most, people who are more of a spiritual bent, people who follow world events and, the deeds of the elite, the cabal, the Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, the false flags, and what they've been used to create. And how there's just so many elements of this that you built into this, and what your intention is, the artist's intention, is really what I want to know, because that's going to, at some point it's going to change maybe how I view the symbols that you've given, but I want to understand what exactly the message is that you were trying to send us. So I know if at any point that you feel it's necessary, please reserve your right to just tell me that, no, I'm not going to reveal that, or, whatever that is to you, that's what that is, but right. If you would, answer our questions about some specific things and just, let us know what's off limits as we go.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I could just address, like, broadly speaking, just before we start, that, when I started the film, I wasn't, that cued in to a lot of different things, like I wasn't too, keep in mind this was in 2004 or 5 that I started, and, I didn't even realize 911 was an inside job, I didn't realize that. And at that time, for me at that time, it was just such a significant event that I put it in there, and it was just such a, for sure, a world-changing event. And for me, this film was a commentary on what I saw around me. But as I did the film, I kept discovering more and more and more things, and just layering them in there, but also realizing that I had put symbols in the film that I understood on a certain level when I start, but then my understanding of those symbols progressed as I went along. Like, for example, the Egyptian symbology and all that I didn't know much about.
Really?
But a lot of it came visually. First and foremost, it was just like an aesthetic and a kind of a gut, visceral, like a real, like a artistic process, like a painter or something like that. I would see symbols, and I would just I would try not to censor what I was seeing, even if sometimes I found the symbols a little shocking, like, for example, the sexual imagery, like juxtaposed with the Christ figure. It was a little shocking to me, honestly, and I wondered, maybe I shouldn't put that in there. But then I thought, no, I need to be honest.
That's a level of humanity that has to be addressed. And
absolutely, yeah. Ultimately, that's the decision I made, is that, these things are really important to me. I know these issues have been really important to my life. They're that I can't pretend that they're not there. I just can't, and so that's why they're in there. I just left it as I saw it. I tried to be as honest as I could.
So in a sense, would you say that it's accurate? You maybe have a feeling that it's somewhat divinely inspired, or that you acted with, a particular muse and things came through? Yeah,
in as much as we're all divinely inspired, I mean,
well, yeah.
For example, it's funny you bring that up, is that in the beginning, I've had certain things happen, like psychic things happen when I, as a kid and all that, but not as strongly as it has happened in the last few years. I've had experiences, but I've also met people. This one good friend that I thank at the end of the movie, who gives classes on all this stuff, guardian angels and entities on the other side, and he actually does channeling and stuff like that. And I didn't have any experience with that before I started the film. But so yeah, I guess now I feel like I was there. There's certain guys that are guiding me. I believe there are multiple dimensions, and there's always spirits there, willing to help us out. And so yeah, I think I was probably helped along, and I think that's part of the way we get. A lot of humans get a lot of information. I don't think it's unique to me or anything, it's just, but I do think some of it came that way for sure.
Okay, so I want to get into the chronology of this thing, because I really think it's a story, right?
Yeah, it's a story. I mean, it's loosely done so that it can be interpreted, I think, different ways, but yeah, it's a story.
Now, the reason I ask that is because, to me, just, with no explanation, just viewing this movie from the perspective that I, exist at, my vibratory rate, watching the symbols that you put before me, I see this as a story of the ascension of man into a whole new world, an awakening.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. Yeah, I mean, it could also be just a hope. Is it something that's really going to happen? My feeling is yes. It's a thing that's it's a thing that's happening in me personally that I can verify, and I can see it happening in others, and they can verify it. Will it be reflected in our world? I don't know. Will it become the dominant consciousness? I don't know, but certainly I can see the transformation happening in me. So I mean, I can speak to that.
Well, and I think we all can. We all have kind of our own stories of over the past decade to 2 decades.
Right.
And just a process of becoming and coming to a point. Man, there's just so many things I want to talk to you about, and so time's limited. I'm just going to get into it. So,
okay, let's go.
You open up in the school scene. Well, actually, you don't even open up in the school scene. You open the whole thing on like a concentration camp. Out comes the goat's head.
Right.
Now, why the concentration camp? You're setting the scene here, right?
Right. Well, I mean, it started with the Bush character, and initially I had the actual book of the My Pet Goat in his hands, but then I changed the story. But I decided to call it My Pet Goat. I don't know why. I mean, some of the decisions are, I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I just kind of, it's loosely written. It's kind of like a bit like poetry. So who knows exactly why I left it that way. But, I just felt it was a kind of an interesting play on words that the My Pet Goat, the book he was reading, I thought I'd show that the My Pet Goat, the goat, is actually us, and we're being, kept in these little boxes. And
what about the barcode? Mark of the beast?
Yeah, I mean, or just simply, we're a product. I mean, certainly we're treated as such. So, I mean, it's always about marketing and advertisement and telling us we're a number and we're a corporation and we're not really humans, and the system is more important than we are. And so, I mean, it's all about that, it's
So, and the goat is just kind of because of the book.
Yeah, it came kind of because of My Pet Goat, but then, I thought I liked kind of the play on words as well, that you could also be a scapegoat and for me, like a pet goat in my mind is like, since he was reading the book My Pet Goat, for me a pet goat is a false flag, right? That's what it is to me now. So my pet goat too is kind of like, 1 false flag, 2 false flag, 3 false flag, and just on and on it goes. The deception and but I guess also the first big false flag for me. I mean, obviously they've been going on in history forever. Now that I've woken up to it, I didn't realize it before. I didn't know about this mechanism, but now that I see it, but for me, the big first false flag was obviously the 9/11, because that's the one I woke up to, and then.
And thank you for putting that in the film. Those towers coming down, and thank you for adding the squibs. You know what I'm talking about? To say the squibs.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Well, I think it was just, it came from that place that I think you're describing, which is that that just, I can't take this anymore, you know? I mean, I can't pretend that this is, you know, this is bullshit, you know? I gotta, oh, sorry, can I say that on the air? I don't know.
Say that. You can say anything you want.
Oh, okay. But, I mean, this is bullshit, you know? I just can't pretend this anymore. And that's why also, you know, I felt like that whole classroom scene, when I started it, a lot of, you know, some people, not a lot of people, but some people, upon viewing it, would try to discourage me from keeping that in there, because it was like they didn't feel it was very poetic, you know, as opposed to the rest of it, which is kind of more, I don't know, just more musical. And I don't know, there's just that visceral place in me, that place of frustration and anger and just, you know, bullcrap. Just felt I want to put, you know, Bush in there, and I want to put Obama in there, and I know it's big, I know it's not a subtle thing.
No.
But then again, you know, their actions and these wars and these is not subtle at all either, you know. So I just felt like I just can't. I got to put it in there just for that resolve within myself. Yeah.
What was the last piece when you actually put it together? Because I assume it's a non-linear experience. You change things as you went.
Actually, the whole story was pretty, I mean, because in animation we do what's called an animatic, and the animatic is basically just it's a very rough version of the whole film. So you basically see all the shots with the camera moves, you know, just rough camera moves.
Right.
You don't see much animation unless there's like a character running or something. You'll just have him translate, you know, with no limbs moving or something like that. It's just to show the basic story from start to finish. Because you do that, you do a rough animation like that because you want to see if your story works, and you want to work out the pacing and storyline before you get into all the modeling and detailed animation, because that's really costly and time consuming. So you want to make sure you've got your story down pat, you know? It's very different than from live action film. Live action film, what's very expensive is the location and you know, the day you shoot, you have to pay all these people and the location and everything like that. So it's very costly for that one day of shoot. So what you do on that one day of shoot, you film everything you can out of every angle you can, and then you go into edit, and then you cut your film together. Whereas in animation, it's the opposite. You actually put your film together before, because you don't want to spend all that money and that time going and doing the animation over and over again. So the film, I'm saying this because the film was pretty much done in 2006. Like, the storyline was the same. It hasn't changed. Even if my understanding changed, what changed is maybe like some symbols, and there were some insert shots. And there was that whole bit of dance, for example, the whole Native American dancer. Yeah. Yeah, amongst others, because Kali is just a mask, but they're, you know, that Native American, it's a Native American dancer behind the mask, and those whole insert shots were added. But basically, the whole storyline has been the same since 2006. So it hasn't really changed all that much, really. It's just been about what's that?
Did you see an awakening of man coming in 2006? Or was it just imagery? I mean, because the Christ figure is pretty central to the story.
Yeah. Well, he was, you know, obviously there from the beginning. Actually, the film started with the visuals in my mind of seeing the Christ character on the boat. And I kept seeing the Christ character on the boat, and that's how it started. And it just felt like he had something to tell me, and I felt like, you know, I felt like if felt like I wanted to go into it because I felt I wanted to know the peace that he speaks of, and that's kind of what the feeling for me was. It was a real personal journey of going into my own personal suffering and facing a lot of my fears that I had about so many things, money, about how am I supposed to live on art, how am I supposed to just so many fears. I can't talk about Jesus. I mean, who do I think I am? All these questions, I think, are very basic human fears. These all were there for me, and this film was for me a personal journey of trying to go through these fears. So that's what it's and so at that time in 2006, when I saw the character of the Christ figure looking at the sun at the end, that to me was, hopefully, it was kind of a longing for me to find peace. And for me at that time, the sun at the end was basically, I and the Father are one and the same. That's what Jesus says. And so to me, that's what that was saying, that last shot. But since then, I've learned that, for example, some people say we're going to be aligning with the galactic center of the universe and all that, right. And so I find it kind of fitting as well, and then I've heard also that we're going through an increased activity of the sun, and we're being bombarded with more energy from the sun, which I didn't know at that time. For me, it was just I and the Father are one.
But we are also we've also moved into an area of the interstellar medium, like the area between stars and their heliospheres.
Right.
That's
I've heard that as well. Yeah.
Like a whole level
where it's more compressed or more. Excuse me.
Yeah, it's faster. It's more dense. It's like a whole level of density beyond what we've experienced in all of human history.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, I've heard that as well. So. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So,
I've got so many questions. I've got like 2 pages worth of questions here.
Okay. And we're
not... reptilian hands manipulating the puppet.
Right.
Guys.
Yeah.
What's with the reptilian hand?
Well, again, it's layers, in the beginning, for me, it was more about the reptilian part of the mind, and it was just kind of a visual thing, like I saw it was a green kind of reptilian mind, and also the green was to me a symbol of the money system as well, because if you look at the Draco character, he's got a lot of symbols of dollar bill on him.
Yeah. Like the ring?
Well, the ring, but if you look at his beard, it's actually textures from the dollar bill, and also his eyebrows.
I just noticed that tonight. Every time I watch this film, it's something different, and it still happens. That I just noticed the upside-down, all-seeing eye pyramid on his key.
On his beard.
I said, that's very clever, Louis. So you just got stuff everywhere in here.
Yeah, I thought a part of it was like the effect I wanted the film to have was kind of like a bombardment of the mind, and so that the mind would feel kind of overwhelmed, and that it would kind of then go directly into the solar plexus, or the emotional seat of the person, so that the person would feel it more on a emotional level, and then in the end, and then have at the end kind of like because if you looked at, a lot of the shots are very short, or medium to short, and then we get to the end, and the 2 last shots are very long, and then it's kind of like an opening, like Like, finally we can kind of relax, because we've been bombarded during the whole time. And the bombarding is also, it's just kind of also synonymous with or parallels what we experience in daily life, right? I mean, and everything's accelerating, and everyone's, we're just, our sensory system is just kind of overwhelmed all the time, and so that's part of it as well.
So you say that, most of this was really done in 2006 or even before. So I see these symbols, like the tile floor of the school. Was that something that just came to you?
Okay. Yeah, I had actually done it green and kind of beige at first, and then I think as my understanding kind of grew with all the Illuminati stuff, and then it was just like, oh, we'll just put it black and white, like forget it. Like,
okay, so the Masonic floor is a purposeful Masonic floor.
Yeah, there's some things like that did come in afterwards, It wasn't all done. I mean, not all the exact visuals were there in place in 2006, but the whole, all the shots were all kind of planned. All the characters, all the shots were done in pretty much, done in 2006, except maybe one or two characters, which later came in, like the American Indian and and then I think the Draco, I think, came in 2008, actually. Yeah. Okay,
so he's also the guy in the tube that's attached to the egg boy.
Yeah.
These are the names that I've got. I've given them names because I just found out tonight that you actually have some names on your website for some of these characters, but I had previously given
baptize them Egg Boy.
They have names like Egg Boy and Old Man, and well, of course, there's just the Christ character, but yeah, they've got names. Speaking of names, Alice, the little girl with the apple. When you dim the lights, there's a rabbit on the wall behind her, and you keep the spotlight on her and the rabbit. Is that an allusion to Alice in Wonderland?
It wasn't really meant to be, but I can see that people, automatically think that. But for me, it was just like the rabbit is a symbol of purity, and if you look at her, like if you look at what's happening at the beginning of the film, all the symbols that are at the front of the class behind Bush and Obama are basically very like mind symbols, like diagrams and letters and things that men have made up for the most part.
Okay.
And in the opposite end of the class, it's all nature symbols. So it's like there's the rabbit, there's a deer, a leaping deer, which is also a symbol of Christ. It's a Christ symbol in Middle Ages. And also there's lily and and plants and stuff like that. So for me, it's also like nature is on that side, and man is on the other side. And these men that want to control nature all the time. And if you look at the kids, there's barbed wire going around them. So so the barbed wire is also, kind of keeping back nature as well.
Okay.
So
now, why
I don't know.
In a circle?
What's that?
Now, why is she in a circle? Is that like a circle of protection?
Well, circle is kind of like a symbol of centeredness and of your wholeness, and it's also a symbol of fraternity and also divinity, I think. So it's kind of like she's in the circle. So she's coming from a place of centeredness, and she's watching what's going on in front of her, and it's she can see clearly what's going on, and she's coming from that place. So that's what that means, I think.
Okay, so let's talk about the journey of the apple.
Yeah.
The apple, it kind of opens up over these markings on the floor, and it looks like it spells something. Was it intended to spell love? Because I get like kind of a E out of the foot, or
right. Well, basically, like I was saying, some of the times I would just get like symbols in my mind, and I didn't really understand what some of the things were saying, but I just kind of put them in anyways. Like, for example, the apple took me a while to understand what that whole scene was about, and I understood it. I understood it one way, and then I've had other people tell it to me another way, and I thought, oh wow, that's great. I don't have a problem with that. I don't think it's meant to, the film is meant to be interpreted just one way. So, I'm saying what I think, but I also, especially with the apple, I think there are a lot of things that can be understood in that. But basically, there were for the letters, it was just kind of a visual thing I did, But then I looked at it and I thought, oh, it's interesting because it kind of looks like a one and a 1 and a 0, an incomplete 0,
Yeah.
And it says you've got the black and white squares, which is duality, and then you've got the apple, the two halves, which is also the duality. So the 1 and the 0 is kind of like the binary system, which is also duality. But it can also be, I was thinking, it can also be kind of like an L and a C, which would be kind of like linear and circular. And which I find kind of interesting because, it's our conception of time as linear and our conception of time as circular,
Yeah, or actually a spiral. But it's
actually a spiral, but more circular than linear. I don't know. I just thought, it's just random thoughts. I mean, it's not. But I don't mean it to be one certain thing in all cases.
Huh. Well, and that was just a curious one because I wasn't quite sure what was going on there, and it actually is more intriguing to me now, knowing that it was kind of just given to you. So. That, I don't know, I will be viewing that differently next time.
Okay, but I mean, yeah.
Now, what about Obama? You've got him sweating as this thing opens up and flowers in front of him. He looks worried. He's looking down at the flowering fruit, and as you're pulling out the window and things are changing.
To me, it's basically. Well, the apple is splitting open, and one of the ways I interpret the apple. And is basically the apple is it's kind of like the paradigm of sin, or the paradigm of duality, of inward division of this is good and this is bad and this is because that's kind of like what the Old Testament was. And it splits open, and then you have the flower of unicity, or the oneness that comes out that from the two halves. So it's kind of like it trumps the old paradigm. The view from above that can see the two halves is the new paradigm.
So he sees the end of duality.
Yeah, he sees the new consciousness coming. And it's terrifying because on many levels, because first of all, he hasn't really, a lot of these people. I can't speak to Obama, particularly. I don't know him, and I can't, but a lot of these people haven't gone into much self-exploration, and so that's terrifying to them. That whole notion that I have to. All these doors that I kept shut, and then all of a sudden they're all going to come out open. And so that's terrifying, but also just on another level that it's terrifying because humanity's waking up and it's like, oh my God, and that's terrifying. So
good. And so that's kind of where in the story do you see us as being now?
Good question.
Because I got to believe we're beyond that first scene. But
oh yeah, I would. Well, we're
not to the end. I know that.
no, we're not at the end, but I mean, I'd say right after that first. A lot of people are still in that first scene, you know, but a lot of people have moved on. So I'd say like after the classroom scene and before the Christ's eyes are open, we're the whole rest is now.
Yeah, okay, that's only the rest of the film.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't know. It's depending on.
No, I agree. I think we're somewhere in there. And I'm glad that we're further down along. Man, you tell such a story. So we're pulling out the window, and everything's changing. There's this graffiti outside. I've looked at it, and I can't make it out. And
oh, really? Okay.
I don't know if you know this, but the way that your film came to me, and probably a lot of thousands of other people, was somebody saw the imagery in this and said, oh, this is an Illuminati way of telling us that they're going to do a false flag operation in the Olympics in London. And they pointed to that graffiti and said, that says Olympics. And I'm looking at them, I'm going, no, it doesn't. But what's up with that graffiti?
Oh, really? I hadn't heard about the graffiti being connected to the Olympics, but the graffiti is just basically it says Psalm. I can't even remember now. It's just 2:3, I think it is. Psalm 23. Psalm 23. Yeah, I think that's what it is. I can't remember now which number it is, but I think it's Psalm 23. And that's it's the one, with the, I walk through the valley of the shadow of death and no evil shall, I can't remember the whole quote.
See, there's a whole new dimension for me now.
Yeah.
Nice.
But, so it was just that, and then I did what's really, I got to tell you a really good story. We don't have much time, but maybe you want to move on.
No, tell us the story.
Okay, well, basically, I did the lightning thing, and it's funny how you can pick up things unconsciously, but I did the lightning thing, and with that psalm in the graffiti, and then I just did it on the wall, and then basically we rendered it out, and then with the reflection in the window, I saw the lightning in the reflection of the window with Obama there, right? So you have the reflection of the lightning, and you see Obama in the window. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. Well, I mean, it was just that, and then I went on to YouTube, and I was looking at some interesting videos, and I happened upon this video of this guy who says Barack, maybe you've seen it, Barack Obama, it's like 3 words, basically means lightning from, it's like a Hebrew word that would mean, in Hebrew it would mean lightning from the heights or something like that. And, really? And the whole YouTube video is about basically Obama being because Jesus would have named the Antichrist as being lightning from above, And I'm not saying that's, true or whatever. I don't know. Like, I just saw this video, and I thought, that's really, really weird, because the lightning's there. I have the lightning there and Obama right next to it. I just thought, wow, that's really weird. Anyways, and it's just a side thing.
Well, it's just one of those things that happens, and the coincidences add up. At some point, I think scientifically we have to go, there's too much coincidence, and that means there is something behind it. Maybe we should try to figure out what that's about.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
So let's get on to the Christ figure, because he is obviously central to the story. I took him to represent the Christ consciousness alive, but mostly sleeping within all of mankind. How close am I to what your actual intention was?
Yeah, I think that's about it. It's I mean, if you want to see it, as Jesus, you can see him as Jesus. If you want to see him as the Christ consciousness, but yeah, for me, it's that it's the pure teaching of Jesus Christ, or the Christ consciousness, the without all the dogma and all and it's that understanding, and so at the end the character is awake to that understanding. So it's kind of like it's kind of like a prayer, It's like a hope that I can rise above my own suffering and know that peace and that divine connection that gives me that peace, So that's But definitely, it's the question that is raised is that, is Jesus going to come out from the heavens above and save us? I mean, that part of the film came out of that questioning as well. Is that or is it? Are we going to do it? Is it going to be us all together? Waking up and just this is bullshit.
Yeah, and
or are we just going to wait and and hope something comes and saves us? I don't know what will. I mean, I think we need to reach into ourselves.
Well, and speaking of things, because people are hoping for something to save us. One of the elements that I thought was intriguingly missing was anything external to the direct experience of Earth. In other words, you had nothing of a galactic nature, no UFOs or contact aliens or anything like that, and you kind of left it at humanities.
Well, I think I would argue with that a little bit, because the Draco I've now because that could be the reptilians, right?
There you go. I mean, that's why
I didn't know about reptilians at that time, but then I read David Icke and I was like, oh, this is interesting, and I'm open to that. I don't know who's. Actually, the friend I met during the film, which I was telling you about, that he does channeling and all that, he talked to me about reptilians as well, and so I don't know. I'm open to it. I'm not, and certainly there are other dimensions. And so when Jesus spoke of Satan, what was he talking about? Was he talking about like it could be just other dimensional beings, So maybe this Draco guy is an other dimensional being, and he represents other dimensional beings that are controlling the human race through their minions. I don't know. I'm the verdict is still out on that for me. I can't conclusively say one way or another.
So really, this is a character that was given to you. There's no purposeful, because someone looking at it from the point of view of yourself now, or countless others out there like myself, who are aware of the whole reptilian end of things, and have looked at that, have opened their minds to examining that possibility,
right,
and seeing how that might play into things. The way that wasn't really there when you started, that understanding, or even thinking along the line. So that really, that's interesting to me, that such a strong character could come through, being behind the scenes, controlling the politicians or the world leaders, and have them just be puppets, doing a song and dance for the world.
Right.
So that's interesting that just kind of came. Other symbols, the Anubis head. You had indicated earlier that like the Egyptian symbols, you didn't really know how they played into things. You just saw them.
Yeah, I don't know. It was weird because I just saw for some reason I had imagined the Christ character on another type of boat, like on a more like a fisherman's boat in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point, just as I was working on the visuals, I just saw it as this long elegant black boat, and then it was obvious it was kind of an Egyptian boat. So it was just kind of like a visual thing. It was like, it's like much more graceful. It's just more beautiful, and that's what needed to be there. And the black, I also liked just the black boat with the reds and yellows and of the Christ figure. It just made it very elegant for me, so visually it just worked, and so that for me that was just a visual thing, and then I went in, understood later on, like I read some Michael Tsarian,
Mm-hmm.
And he talks a lot about the Egyptian symbology, and then I read other sources as well, and I was just really like, oh, this is interesting. Maybe I was like maybe I was an Egyptian something in another life, or I don't know. It's just kind of weird. But and then the dog's head, or the jackal, the Anubis,
the Egyptian guide of the dead.
Yeah.
Which kind of interesting.
That kind of came visually as well. But I think I might have researched it a little bit as well. Like I was looking into visuals, and then might have seen a sculpture, and I can't exactly remember all of it, but like I didn't know anything about I didn't know anything about that there was actually Horus was resurrected, like after, or was Horus was I can't remember now. Horus was died for 2 days and then was resurrected the third day. There is that
analogy to the Christ story.
Yeah, to the Christ figure, which I didn't know about. So these things were I've read some. Like I learned some Egyptian symbols when I was a kid. I think we all did some history, but I don't, not to any extent that it would come up in my mind at that time. But
well, Louis, we've got less than 10 minutes left in the show, and I promised callers I'd open it up. I'm going to take.
Oh yeah, okay.
So area code 719. You have a question for Louis?
Hey Tim, it's Patrick.
Hey Patrick, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having Louis on.
It's been my pleasure. It has totally been my pleasure. You have a question for him?
Yeah, Louis. I was absolutely blown away by your piece of artwork, and
thanks, Patrick.
And it's so fascinating that a lot of this started for you in about 2004 and 2006, right?
Yeah.
And I just find it fascinating that you were pretty much, it seems like you were downloaded with quite a bit of information that was spread out over several years, and you weren't even aware of a lot of it, it seems like. Yeah,
it is fascinating for me as well.
And what I really liked is it's so open to interpretation, and you don't have it just mean one thing. I really like that.
Mhm.
So I just really wanted to thank you.
Oh well, thanks a lot. Yeah, I think that's. It leaves a little more, because religion is already there's so many belief systems already, and it seems we're at our throats for belief systems, and the different religions and all that, and I didn't want this to be like a dogmatic thing, like I have some truth or anything, which I don't. It's just, I think it's a film that challenges belief systems, but then doesn't necessarily give you an answer. You can try to work on that on your own.
No, but it's that spark, whether people are upset about it or love it, it's that building block for them to question the world and the status that we live in, and something we can do about it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, yeah. Hopefully we can that's what it does. Hopefully it does do that. Yeah.
Well, that's why we have people like you, people like Tim, people that are aware and want to make a difference. It just takes a small group of people that are really avidly, care about it.
Yeah, word on the street is it's more and more of us every day. But,
yeah, that's the great part, is just seeing how it's just, and then I think when the financial implosion or whenever that happens, I think a lot of people are going to wake up in a hurry.
I like the way you put that. Whenever that happens.
Yeah. Seems it could be soon, but who knows?
So another question for you on the movie. When this moth alights on the Christ figure's finger, it instantly turns to flame, and kind of simultaneously the heart chakra that had been kind of sputtering before, or the heart symbol, the sacred heart, it lights up at that point, and and the kind of music kind of changes and builds a little bit there. Does that moment represent some kind of awakening, of the beginning of the process?
Yeah.
Or what's with the moth lighting up and then everything?
The moth, specifically the moth, is actually that came from, I had seen a teacher of more of an Eastern religion teacher. His name is Wayne Lickerman, and I actually thanked him at the end of part of the movie. He's just a great kind of Eastern Advaita teacher, and he had an experience with a teacher in India, and he speaks to that in a poem. And in the poem, he described how he had been compelled to this teacher, and it had been almost like he had been drawn like a moth to a flame. And it's just a beautiful poem, and that's kind of like just poetry,
I gotcha.
But I think a part of us dies when we let go of our attachments, of our ideas of who we are and our belief systems, and the more we purify ourselves of our belief systems and our attachments to those belief systems, I think the more we are, our ego dies, our sense of solid reality as something separate dies, and so that's kind of like a little bit what the moth to
and
the
imagine
fire.
Once enough of us have that point of view of the world, that perspective of the world, that's the idea, is that it's a collective shift in consciousness, because we all do actually at some point share consciousness. And
that's right, yeah. So it's just that realization, and then I think that's kind of like what that represents. The first, because you see, it's like three. You see the planes bombing the mosque.
Yes.
So the planes are flying. Then you have the sparrows coming up from the mosque and towards the camera.
And those are sparrows, not bats.
What's that?
Those are sparrows, not bats.
Oh yeah, they're sparrows, not bats. Okay. Yeah, sorry to disappoint, but
I was confused by that.
Yeah, well, for me they were sparrows, and then basically the butterfly then flies into the flames. So it's just kind of like gross, subtler, and then you're consumed by the consciousness of the Christ character.
Oh, well,
that's what that means to me.
Louis, I'm afraid that we're down to under like 90 seconds here, and I've barely even begun to ask. We might have to do a part 2, because we'll do like a rapid fire part 2. There's so much in this film, and I guess ultimately it's probably best to let people,
Yeah, I was going to say,
what it is for them.
It's probably best not to say everything and to explain everything, because I have my own view of it, but I'm very happy for other people to have their own view of it, to see bats.
Well, I'm going to go with sparrows from now on. I like sparrows.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on tonight and talking with us.
It was my absolute pleasure.
And
had a good time.
And I know. Thanks, Patrick, for calling in. I've got you still.
Yeah. Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your service, both of you.
I love you too, man.
You're awesome, man. Okay. 10 seconds. I got to go. Everybody, just you know what? Be well. Everybody, be well. Breathe. Namaste, guys. Peace.
Namaste.
Thanks, Tim.